The residents of Willow Creek woke up one morning to the sound of rushing water. At first, they thought it was a storm, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Then the screaming started. Streets turned into rivers, cars floated like toys, and 35 newly built houses began to crumble under the flood. At the edge of it all, a man stood silently on the ridge, watching as water poured from the dam he had controlled for years. His name was Elijah Green. And those 35 homes? They weren't supposed to exist, because the land they sat on was his. Elijah Green was no ordinary man. At 62, he was a quiet farmer, a widower, and a father of 3 grown children. But beneath his modest lifestyle, Elijah carried a legacy. His grandfather had purchased 200 acres of fertile land generations ago, one of the few black landowners in the region during the 1920s. That land, through blood, sweat, and endless sacrifice, had stayed in the family ever since. To Elijah, it wasn't just dirt. It was history. His ancestors were buried on that soil. His children had grown up playing in its fields, and sitting at the edge of the property was a small dam Elijah had built decades ago to irrigate his crops, a dam he alone controlled. But when developers came to town, things changed. The Willow Creek Homeowners Association wanted to expand. They promised luxury houses, a golf course, and a community for the elite. Elijah refused every offer. "This land isn't for sale," he said firmly, but they didn't wait for his consent. Using forged documents, shady zoning deals, and local officials in their pockets, the HOA began construction. In less than 2 years, 35 homes stood tall on land Elijah legally owned. He went to court. He filed complaints. He begged city officials to intervene, but no one listened. The HOA had money, power, and connections. Elijah was just one man, or so they thought. The more Elijah fought, the more they mocked him. "Old man, you're finished," one HOA board member sneered. "You don't belong here anymore." He watched as families moved in, lawns were manicured, and private community signs went up on his land. They even tried to bar him from walking on his own property. But Elijah had something no one else did. The dam. The dam wasn't massive, but it was strong. It held back a wide reservoir that fed his farmland. Elijah knew every stone, every lever, every gate. And he also knew one terrifying truth. If he opened the dam fully, the water would surge straight through the valley, right where those 35 houses now sat. For months, Elijah wrestled with the thought. He wasn't a violent man. He didn't want revenge. He wanted justice, but justice wasn't coming. Then one afternoon, his lawyer called with the final blow. "Elijah, I'm sorry. The court dismissed your case. The deeds they presented were accepted. Legally, the land is no longer yours." Elijah hung up the phone and sat in silence. His father's words echoed in his head. "This land is your blood. Never let them take it." That night, Elijah walked to the dam. The moonlight shimmered on the water's surface. His hands gripped the rusted wheel that controlled the floodgates. He closed his eyes, and he turned it. The sound was deafening. Water roared like thunder as it burst from the dam, racing down the valley with unstoppable force. Within minutes, Willow Creek was unrecognizable. Streets drowned, lawns disappeared, cars lifted and floated like leaves. Homeowners screamed as water surged into their basements, swallowing furniture, tearing down fences, and buckling walls. Panic gripped the community. Families scrambled to higher ground, clutching children and pets, watching helplessly as their Million-dollar homes crumbled. At the ridge, Elijah stood tall, not smiling, not laughing, just watching, his face heavy with both sorrow and resolve. He hadn't opened the dam out of malice. He had opened it because no one listened. Because the land beneath those houses was his, stolen by greed, erased by corruption. When the water finally slowed, the devastation was clear. 35 homes ruined. The next morning, helicopters hovered over Willow Creek, broadcasting the destruction. News reporters swarmed Elijah's property, demanding answers. "Did you do this? Did you open the dam?" Elijah didn't deny it. He simply said, "You built on land that wasn't yours. I took back what belonged to me." His admission sparked a firestorm. The HOA cried foul, calling him a criminal. But when investigators reviewed the case, they uncovered the truth: forged signatures, illegal land transfers, and backroom deals. The HOA had stolen Elijah's property through fraud. The courts had no choice but to act. Not only was Elijah cleared of all charges, but the land was restored to his name. The HOA board members faced prison for conspiracy and fraud. As for the families who bought the homes, Elijah held no grudge. He knew they were victims too. Many came to him in tears, apologizing for not believing him sooner. Elijah, though firm, allowed them time to move out before reclaiming his land. Months later, as bulldozers cleared the wreckage, Elijah stood by the dam once more. His daughter asked quietly, "Daddy, did you regret it?" Elijah's eyes softened. "I regret they made me do it, but I'll never regret standing for what's ours." And as the water rippled gently behind him, Elijah knew one thing for certain. No matter how powerful they seemed, no one, not even an HOA, could erase his family's legacy.